Well, good evening, friends and family and brothers and sisters and acquaintances. We are, on behalf of the Anderson family, I would like to express my extreme thankfulness and sincere thankfulness that you attended today. You're here probably because you knew Taylin Anderson. I think that's why we're all here. And it's not often that usually when funerals or memorials are spoken, it's the children speaking about the parents. And they're really at a disadvantage because they don't know the parents from birth forward. They only know from their birth forward. And so as a father who actually knew Taylin from the day he was born until the day he passed, it is my privilege to say a few words about him. And, you know, after we heard it, there's been periods of grief and periods of exhilaration and periods of thankfulness. And I hopefully that I'll be able to do this and conduct this in a manner of dignity that will be befitting Taylin. Here's what we're going to do tonight, and again, I've never done this, we've never done this before. We plan on having a funeral in Utah on January 7th, and we really wanted that to be the place where we would be sad. We wanted this to be an event where we could celebrate the life of Taylin. He spent the last 3 or 4 years there, actually since what, 2006, 2018. And I know he made a lot of friends. He had wonderful co-workers that he worked with. He had family, and we wanted to just give people a chance that knew him to maybe say a final goodbye, and again for the family to express our appreciation at the kindness that you showed him. He spoke highly of the people he worked with, the people he played with, his acquaintances here in Phoenix, and we are all very grateful as family members. So here's what we plan on doing tonight. I'm going to give a brief summary of Taylin's life. And again, we're going to do most of this at the funeral. But a brief summary of Taylin's life. And then we would like to give an opportunity for anybody that might want to say something about him to come up here. And you're under no obligation to. If you have a few words you could share with us or the family or friends that are gathered here that might be comforting, or that we would love to hear any stories about Taylin, anything that we can remember him by, because this was kind of you know, we knew him as a child, we knew him growing up, we knew him as a student, as a son. We weren't down here during most of his working career, and so we didn't work with him every day. And I know that he was I know all the wonderful things in the other realms he operated in, but I don't know about his work and his play as much. And so as a family, we would be grateful, and you're not under no obligation to, but grateful for you to share your thoughts. After we share thoughts, we're going to have Rachel Anderson, his sister-in-law. One of the things that Taylin, most people don't know about Taylin, is he was a self-taught piano player. And he could sit down on YouTube and he could eventually learn almost any song that he could hear. And he had a piano in his apartment, and he played for pure enjoyment. And we're going to have Rachel do a song that he was truly fond of. He was great at instrumentals. So, but no further ado. Oh, and if you decide you'd like to say something about Taylin, if you don't mind, just tell us who you are and your relationship to Taylin, so we can maybe take a note and know exactly how we're connected. So Taylin was born on May 8th, 1990 in Las Vegas, Nevada. May 18th, yes, sorry. May 18th, 1990. In Las Vegas, Nevada, to his father, Andrew Martell Anderson, that's me, and his mother, Camille Roundy Anderson. Taylin was a fortunate child because Taylin had 2 mothers. My wife is a twin, and her sister Claudia came to live with us not long after we were married. And so for the longest time, all of our children thought it was normal to have 2 mothers, and they did. And so they were fortunate in that regard. He was the second child, having followed his older sister Lisa Elaine Anderson. And then following Taylin's birth, he had a brother, Kenyon Martell Anderson, a sister, John Will Susan Anderson, and a brother, Quentin Andrew William Anderson. And as a child, Taylin was such a fun kid. We loved being together as a family. He attended Ron Zoney Elementary School in Las Vegas. Then he went to Hyde Park Middle School, which was actually a magnet school that he attended. And for a couple of years, he was in gifted and talented education, which is no surprise. Taylin was a brilliant student. I mean, his mind worked very well. Then he, instead of going to the regular high school, he actually went to Advanced Technologies Academy, also known as ATEC, where he also excelled and he was especially drawn to computers and computer gaming. He graduated in the year 2008. After graduation, he attended UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and took courses for about a year. And then in 2009, he actually served a church mission for the LDS Church, and he went to Ohio. He served in Cleveland, Ohio. And during that time in Ohio, he made many friends. He gained the respect of his companions and the people that he worked with, and he really enjoyed himself, and he grew immensely. He grew in stature, he grew in spirit, he matured, and a lot of his personal development was gained in those 2 years where he was away from home, but caring about people and serving people. It was while he was on his mission that he discovered that he had type 2 or type 1 diabetes. This was totally unknown to us, and it was discovered because during a 2 or 3 month period, he lost about 30 pounds. And finally, somebody who had seen him earlier and then saw him again said, "What's going on?" And he says, "I don't know." And they went and had him checked, and they discovered that he had diabetes. And so he was actually quite good at taking care of that. And over the years, he's been very conscientious about taking care of his health issues. And it didn't debilitate him in any way, other than the fact that he had to take insulin. When he came back from his church mission, he went to Brigham Young University, and he started there, and he graduated in 2016. He focused on, or his major, he likes to tell me, it was bioinformatics. Now, I can't even tell you what that is. I think it was crunching numbers to help solve health issues. Maybe I need to look that up. Shall we do? Well, anyway, I know it involved a lot of numbers, and he loved it. But when he graduated in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in science, he interviewed with General Motors, and they hired him as a software engineer. And he immediately moved to Austin, Texas, where he lived for about 2 years, I believe. And he worked for General Motors. And I don't know, I know there's some from General Motors here. I don't know if you worked with him there. But a little bit later, Kenyon graduated, his brother, and Quentin moved to Phoenix. And so the two boys were here, and there was an office of General Motors here in Phoenix. And so Taylin requested a transfer, and they transferred him here. So now we have all 3 brothers down here, and they really enjoyed their time together. You know, Phoenix is a big city. You can't get to somebody's house in 5 minutes, and they kind of lived in opposite ends. It takes a half hour to get to everybody's house, but they talked often, and especially Quentin and Taylin, they were online almost daily and conversing with each other. And we came down here and we had get-togethers and parties, and so Taylin lived by himself, and he was quite content in that. Taylin was a shy person in many ways until you got to know him, but he was not. He didn't seek the spotlight. He just was there, and he was dependable, and everybody knew that they could count on him. So, just a few words. Taylin was a quiet, unpretentious, and brilliant young man. Truthfully, I never heard him speak ill of another person. I wish I could say that about myself. He had a droll sense of humor. If you don't know what that is, look that up. Droll, D-R-O-L. And I feel that sometimes as I watched him, and he watched people around him, he was quietly amused by some of the choices and decisions and things that other people did and said. But you know, he never criticized anybody. He just silently observed, and again, I never heard him say one bad thing about anybody. He was accepting and loving towards everybody that he met. He was a kind person, I guess you could call him that. Taylor was not flashy. He never sought the spotlight, and yet I feel he was content in the knowledge of who he was and in his strengths and in his abilities. It took him a while in life to realize just what his strengths and abilities were. But once he had that, he had a huge foundation for peace and security that I think he felt. In looking for words to define Taylin, this is what kept coming to mind. I'm going to give you a definition, and I'm going to tell you what the word is. You may know the word by the definition or the phrase, but here's the phrase. This phrase means to be free of deceit, cunning, hypocrisy, and dishonesty in thought or action. That's the definition. If you're not familiar with that phrase, this is a definition of someone who is without guile. Without guile, if you don't know what that is, look that up. But it's without deceit, cunning, hypocrisy, dishonesty in thought or action. And I believe that describes Taylin. I've never known him to be dishonest. You know, if he had a perfect child, he would fill that definition. He never gave us one bit of problems growing up. He never snuck out the window at night, at least that I'm aware of. Or did anything wild and crazy. He was just a good, steady, wonderful human being. So Taylin passed away on December 12th, 2022. And the cause of his death is still unknown. The autopsy has been completed and the cause is still pending. This I can tell you, they were going to do a toxicology report, but he did not drink, he did not smoke, he did no illicit drugs, he was as pure as the driven snow. So it'll be interesting to find out. What will be more interesting to find out is not the cause of death, but why. You know, as a family, we have the question that I think everybody has, is why? Why would a person like this, that had no cause to pass away, why would he leave us? Why would he depart from those he loved? Don't know the answer to that question. I feel it will be answered one day. I believe strongly, in fact, I feel strongly that we will see Taylin again. I believe that he is in a better place now. And this is just not based on my faith, but also I'm a very pragmatic and scientific and logical person, I feel. And I have heard thousands and hundreds of thousands of examples of people who have supposedly passed away. And almost without fail, they all returned, never having a fear of dying again. And rejoicing in the things that they saw and they heard and they felt. And I believe Taylin is in that place now. And I look forward to the day when I will be able to embrace him again. So again, I didn't want this to become a sullen and sorrowful event. I really wanted us to celebrate the life of Taylin Anderson. So I'd like to turn the time over to anybody here, and again, do not feel obligated. But if you have feelings that you would like to express, if you have thoughts, if you have any recollections of Taylin that would be comfortable or would give comfort to the family or just help you come to reconcile his passing, we would love to hear from you. When we get through with this, again, at the conclusion of the tribute, we'd like to, Rachel was going to play one of the pieces that Taylin actually liked, and he played it right. And then we have refreshments, and if you'd like to linger a little longer, and we'd like to, we don't know everybody here, we'd like to know what your relationship is to Taylin. And again, our family expresses our truest thanks, appreciation at your effort to be here. This is a holiday season. I know many of you could have been with your families. You didn't need to travel this far. I know some of you come from exotic lands far away, which I did not expect. And you are acknowledged, and I appreciate you. So with no further ado, I'll turn the time over. If you just want to stay in your seat, you're welcome to do that too, or you're welcome to come up here. So you got to tell us who you are and what your relationship is.
Hi everybody. Those of you who may not know, I'm Quentin. I'm shared all the same hobbies and did them all together. Like my dad said, I'd like to really thank everybody for coming out and supporting our family through this time. We really appreciate it. Tonight is about remembering Taylin, whether those memories bring us joy, sadness, or any feeling that may arise is valid. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Let's just remember him today and remember what a great person he was. Taylin was not only a brother to me, but also a role model and a best friend. In our adolescence, we both fell in love with video games together. I was there the first time he put the Ocarina of Time cartridge in the N64, and I was there the first time he installed World of Warcraft on our computer in 2004. It only took 4 discs and 8 hours to finish. But we finally were able to play, and I watched him log in and create his first character. That game later ended up becoming a very important part of our lives, as a lot of our social life revolved around that in our adulthood. We formed many lifelong friendships through our guild named Atrophy in WoW, in World of Warcraft. And we would eventually meet up with them at BlizzCon, which is like a yearly convention. We would fly around from all over the country and all get to meet each other and have a good time. Taylor and I became especially close when he returned home from his mission. I'm 6 years younger than him, so during his teen years, I'm sure there were times where I was probably a nuisance, but as I matured, he kind of came home and we really got to know each other while he was going to UNLV. It was just me and him living at home with our parents. I still remember the feeling of his presence behind me in our old bedroom, him sitting on the banana chair playing Skyrim or something, and on the computer next to him. He's always there if I wanted to talk or laugh about something. After UNLV, he eventually moved to go to BYU in Utah, and soon after followed him in Utah, went to UVU, which is a nearby school. When he was in college, he had me over at his apartment several times, just to stay the weekend with him and his roommates, and truly treasure those memories that I have with them. Playing board games, role-playing games, video games, watching TV shows, movies, whatever. Taylin was a very essential part of a large online community of friends. And he's deeply loved and deeply missed by them. And a large portion of that group actually lives in Phoenix, so we were able to meet up often and get to spend time with each other physically as well as virtually. And the WoW Guild was kind of like always a second family to him as well. Even this last month, he was able to spend Thanksgiving with them, and I'm really thankful for that he had such good friends that he could rely on. Some things I'd like to touch on about what kind of person Taylin is, just like how my dad did. He was so kind and compassionate, and just like I can't remember a single time when he would speak ill of somebody, or I don't remember any fights that I ever got in with him. He was always so cool and level-headed, really understanding of everybody. And he was always there to help out whenever he needed it, whenever anyone needed it. And given that he was so talented at like video games, and he was such a clever person, like a lot of people would use him as a source, like before everyone got used to Googling like how to finish and beat games, they reference Taylin, like how do I get past this part of Pokemon? Yeah, he was always really kind. When he came home from his mission in church, we were both assigned to give talks to the whole congregation. I opened for him, and normally it's like really nervous, and I only took up 3 minutes, and that left him with 57 minutes to fill. And he really let me off the hook so easily. He didn't seem to mind at all, and was just the kind of person he was. He was also just so fun. He's had such a goofy sense of humor. Really fun to hang around with. He was always the quickest one in the room to get the joke. We'd laugh at him before I even realized there was a joke said. He was always kind of like a yes man to me. I would invite him out a lot of times to just get food together or go to events or wherever really, and he never really told me no. He was always down to hang out and do whatever with me. And I remember one time when we were playing a D&D campaign together, he was playing a warlock that he named Possession, but we would all accidentally call him Passion. And I still remember the goofy way that he would, ironically, yell out the spells he was casting. and his smile and his laugh they always felt so genuine, so they were infectious. And you never felt like he was putting on a mask or anything. He always felt genuine. Taylin was also very open-minded and non-judgmental person. Like my dad said, he was very true to his values. He never drank, never smoked, never did drugs or anything like that. He never even swore. He always, I remember one time we were with some friends playing Cards Against Humanity, and I think just because he didn't want to make a big deal out of it, he read aloud the F word on the card, and we all just simultaneously gasped and teased him because it was such a shock. Nobody had ever heard anything like that before. And yeah, he got embarrassed, but he was a good sport about it. And also in our World of Warcraft guild, we kind of had this running joke that was like our guild's HR department was just an example to everyone how to be nice and things to do, what should be done. And he was a very smart and logical person. He loved puzzles, loved games, loved going to escape rooms, cooperative board games. All that stuff was so much fun to do with him. He was a very introverted person. A lot of times it took him a bit to get out of his shell, but once he did, he was such a joy to be around. I remember my mom would tell me stories about when he was younger. I was probably a baby, so, but he would, whenever he was younger and he had birthday parties, he would eventually go missing, and my mom wouldn't see him at the party anymore, and so she'd go look for him, and she'd find him hidden in a closet, just reading a book, because he just wanted a break, some time to himself. And also he really loved reading. He was so good at he was a speed reader, and I'm so impressed by him. He managed to read all of the huge 14-book series of Wheel of Time, which I don't know many people who have finished it all the way through, but he managed to do so. And he was always that kind of person. He managed to finish anything that he put his mind to. He managed to finish it to completion, and I always really admired that. I truly loved him, and I really miss him. And again, I really appreciate all of you guys coming out, supporting me and my family, remembering him. Things will never really be the same about him. He's a beautiful person inside and out. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jonquil. I'm Taylin's sister. One thing I did want to say is if you don't feel comfortable coming up and sharing, there's this QR code on the program where we've created a memorial statement on the stage where we drop in any memories, any pictures, anything like that, and also look at things other people have shared as well. So, and like my dad said, there's so much about Taylin because I live in Utah, right? My parents don't live here either. There's just this whole part of him that we didn't really know. So we would appreciate you guys doing that if you have any pictures to share. But I'll just kind of say a few words about Taylin. So Taylin was everything that an older brother should be. He was caring and he was kind. He never judged. He pretended not to be too mad if I erased his memory card or I'm even mad. He was always there to listen to me, right? He never spoke ill of anyone, but he was happy to listen to me complain. And, he never, made me feel like my feelings weren't valid. And I feel very lucky to have known him my entire life so far. I think Taylin had no idea the quiet impact that he had on others. When I first moved to Provo, Taylin was really an anchor for me. He was going to BYU, and we moved into the same apartment complex, and so we spent a lot of time together. We would either go out to eat or walk around the mall together. We had to share a car at the time, so we would drive each other to work and pick each other up, and in that time, we were able to talk a lot. He even came with us when we adopted our dog, Ruby, after we got married, and he was there for a lot of, seemingly insignificant moments, but, in a time like this, you never really realize how significant those moments were. So I'm grateful that we had those years to spend together before he moved to Texas, and I kicked myself. I slept in the morning that he left for Austin. We were supposed to go to breakfast together, but we did go to visit him a few months later, and I remember having to walk through this homeless camp because there was this restaurant he really wanted to go to, and the barbecue was worth it, so it was good. But he was just so full of life, and he was always down to do anything, and always just really willing to either help someone or just to be involved. And while he was kind of a little bit more introverted or maybe shy, he really did enjoy being with others. He had, like Quentin said, a really fantastic sense of humor. He was always the first to get a joke, and whenever we were watching a movie or playing a game, he was the loudest person to laugh, and just that laughter was so contagious. And Taylin was really the calm voice of reason. And my aunt referred to him once as a gentle giant, and I think that really perfectly describes him. He had such a presence without even saying anything, And I think that, he didn't know how much we as a family all just looked up to him and respected him, and just how much we admire him, and he's definitely going to be missed. And on the back of your program, we included a poem, but I kind of rewrote it to better fit my brother, so I'm gonna read it. It's kind of silly, but do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am arrayed with friends and wow. I am the laughter in a crowd. I am the purring of a cat. I am aviators and a clean white hat. When you read a book of fantasy, I am the magic there you see. A son, a brother, and a friend, a heart of gold until the end. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. So, yeah, this has been very hard for our family, but I feel very lucky to have been able to love my brother and to have someone who makes saying goodbye so hard. And yeah, he had such a huge impact, and I think he would be so maybe surprised, or he just didn't realize how amazing that he truly was, and we love him so much, and he will be missed. So thank you guys all for coming and supporting her family and remembering Taylin. Thank you.
This isn't mine. That was beautiful. So I felt the need to capture. I'm not as comfortable with speaking off the cuff as I am with writing down some of my thoughts. So I'll be reading some of this. For those of you that don't know, my name is Kenyon. I'm Taylin's younger brother. We're 2 years apart, so there's a lot of childhood memories. And I've thought very hard about what I want to say right now, and I've resigned myself to the fact that there's not really any words that can make me feel as though I've done my brother's life justice, but I'll say some words nonetheless. Taylin was my earliest friend in life, and I couldn't have asked for a better one. As has been said by so many others, there just wasn't a mean or cruel bone in Taylin's body. And as I've reflected on who I was as a child, I realized that this obnoxious little brother didn't deserve half of the patience and inclusion that was given to me by Taylin so willingly. We were so close in age that we did everything together as kids. There were so many childhood experiences that we had together, and it seems cruel that I can scarcely remember any of the details or the specifics surrounding so many of the threads that made up the fabric of our childhood lives. Though the details escape me, I do remember building blanket forts in our room, watching Pokemon or Digimon or whatever show we happened to be obsessed with at the time, side by side, gasping or laughing in unison. I remember that we would fight imaginary bad guys in the backyard with makeshift swords and spears, and with his help, we were always sure to be victorious. I also remember him doing this on his own sometimes, and I'd look out the window and see him swinging his sword or spear, bravely fighting imaginary monsters when we were kids. In one of these circumstances, the monster turned out to be my dad's vintage "I'll fix it up one day" van that was parked in our backyard. Perhaps by accident, or perhaps due to a child's imagination running away with him, Taylin threw a big, large broomstick spear that pierced the heart of that van, and totally destroying the back of the van's window. A critical hit against the giant monster, to be sure, but probably one that resulted in a well-deserved conversation about responsibility for my parents. I can't remember for sure, but I imagine that was probably the day that I learned that Taylin was, in fact, a fierce warrior not to be reckoned with. I remember sleepovers with friends, and I remember going with Taylin to sleepovers with him at his friend's house, and he was okay with that. And I don't think as a child I could have possibly appreciated how unique that sort of thing is from a big brother. I remember the games that we would play together. Sometimes playing together would just involve me watching Taylin in awe and amazement as he solved the puzzles or the dungeons in The Legend of Zelda or some other video game. He had such a mind for those things and made it look so easy. And though I would try myself, I could never quite play these games with the same skill and aptitude that he had. I remember waking up super early one morning when for the first time he was going to beat The Legend of Zelda and fight Ganon, and we were so excited. And we didn't wake up very early too often, but I remember Christmas we would, and when he beat Zelda for the first time. I remember collecting and trading Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards with him, and we must have dueled each other with Yu-Gi-Oh cards hundreds of times. It was extremely common and on a daily basis sometimes in some of the seasons of our life. For one of us to just go up to the other one randomly and say, "Hey, you want to duel?" And say, "Oh yeah, sure." And then we do multiple, and so much fun. I really missed that. As was mentioned, Taylin was also an avid reader for as long as I can remember him. He could speed read, and although I could never read nearly as fast as he could, I'm grateful that we were able to bond over some of the books that we read. Ours was the generation that grew up reading Harry Potter and waiting for the next one to come out, and I remember talking with him and speculating about what was going to happen next. In recent years, he got me into some of his favorite books and some of my favorite books now, and whenever we get together, inevitably, maybe to the annoyance of some in the family, we'd end up talking and theorizing and kind of getting a little bubble with each other about that. He was especially fond of fantasy and sci-fi books. Given the aforementioned slain van in our backyard, that's probably surprising to no one. And I found a quote by one of Taylin's favorite authors, George R.R. Martin, that I feel like captures the effect and the impact that fantasy and stories had in his life. It says, "A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads only lives once." And I'm grateful that Taylin's life was enriched with the lives he found between pages of some of his favorite books. And I'm grateful that I can still see him in the books that I read now. As I've been reflecting and thinking about life and death in the wake of Taylin's passing, I've given a lot of thought to the idea of a last time. Whether it was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or building forts in our room, fighting imaginary bad guys in the backyard, or having a lively discussion about various twists and turns of a shared fantasy book, for each of these, there was a last time. And I have no idea when any of these last times were. But I can guarantee that the last time I ever cleaned the board after a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card duel, for the last time, I hadn't the faintest idea that would be the last time. And that was years ago. And this is how it always goes, isn't it? The same can be said about the last time we watched a movie or talked philosophy and politics on a road trip, or gave each other a hug, or told each other that we loved each other. Anything we do in our lives, good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant, will only be done a finite number of times. And everything we can possibly do in life will have a last time, and we usually won't even know at the time that it was our last. And I think recognizing that can help us appreciate the journeys over the destinations. And on that note, I just wanted to end my thoughts by quoting another one of his favorite books. The book's called The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And just for context, there's a character in the book who's reading the writings of a philosopher, and this is kind of what the philosopher was writing about. It says, "And so does the destination matter, or is it the path we take? I declare that no accomplishment has substance nearly as great as the road used to achieve it. We are not creatures of destinations. It is the journey that shapes us, our calloused feet, our backs strong from carrying the weight of our travels, our eyes open with fresh delight of experiences lived. In the end, I must proclaim that no good can be achieved by false means, for the substance of our existence is not in the achievement, but in the method. Life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination." There was always going to be a last time that I was with my brother, and it's unfair to all of us that the last time happens far sooner than it should have, but there was always going to be a last time. And perhaps no matter when it would have always felt like it was too soon. And so I find some peace in focusing on Taylin's journey rather than his destination, and his life rather than his death. I miss him so much, and I'm grateful that I was fortunate enough to be part of his journey. Thank you all so much for coming.
Hello, I'm Elena. I am a friend of our gamer family that we have here in Arizona. I just want to say I love Taylin. I love Taylin. Taylin was so funny though. He was the best. He was honestly the best. I love Taylin so much because whenever we would go out, we would go just to hang out with friends or go to a bar or even go to like a club. I could ask Taylin and I know he would be down for anything. He'd be down for anything whenever we went out. And he would even dance with me. I never got anybody to dance with me. He was a great dancer. You know? Even though like, you know, he didn't drink or anything like that, he would still go to a bar with us and watch a fight or something, you know? He was seriously, honestly, like a brother to me. I could talk to Taylin about anything. Whenever we invited him out, any kind of friend gathering or anything, I could talk to Taylin about any of my feelings. You know, and deep things as well, and issues I had, and, you know, he was just someone who would really listen. He really listened to you and cared what you had to say. I'm gonna miss so many things about Taylor. I'm gonna miss the way he scratches his beard, the way whenever he's pondering something or saying something cheeky. I'm gonna miss our warlock and our guild. We talk to Taylin literally every day. Every day. And I didn't know it was gonna hurt this much to lose somebody I care so much about and lose such a close friend. It won't be the same. No one can ever replace Taylin. So I just want to thank him for the love of friendship he gave us into my life, into my family. He's been there for a lot of major events in my life. He's been there for my wedding and my baby shower. He's been there. Last time we saw him was on Thanksgiving. And it's very hard to know that we just saw him. And we will not be able to see him again. But you know, I feel full. My heart feels full because of the love Taylin gave to us. So thank you, Taylin. I love you.
I'm Taylin's mother. I just want to fill in a few details of his life and some of the things that I've thought over the past while about him. When Taylin was born, he was a genius, I tell you, and a wide-mouthed frog. His mouth was so big. But that was because my reference was Liesl, my daughter with Down syndrome. She had this little teeny tiny mouth, and she was slow in developing and learning everything. And Taylin just could do it. I mean, he just could do everything. And he had a way of protecting Liesl and taking care of Liesl, even probably before he could even walk. I remember one time I heard him scream at bloody murder, and he was probably 2, maybe not quite 2, just barely walking. And I ran out of the kitchen to see what was wrong. And he was coming down the stairs as fast as he could, covered with green handprints of green paint. Liesl had found this jar of green paint, and she was painting everything. Him, herself, the walls, down in the tub, everything. And he had come down to let Mom know that this was not all right. She was not doing a good thing. When he was in, I don't remember how old he was, he started liking gaming. And I was really torn about it. I didn't know whether I wanted him to get into that world or not. And he wanted a Nintendo 64 so bad. And I was not gonna buy him a Nintendo 64. So, his two loves, gaming and piano, started with an ad in the paper I saw for a $500 piano. And I said, Andy, I'm going to look at this piano. He says, don't take the checkbook. And we walked into this room, Claudia went with me, and it was probably about half the size of this room, and it was lined with pianos. This guy was a piano tuner and repairman, and he would repair pianos, and then he would sell them, the ones that, weren't going back to their owners. And he went around playing the piano, and he came to this upright grand piano, and he went, and I says, I'll buy it. I went home, Andy, I bought a piano. And it was the best $500 I've ever spent. It was great. I started teaching him in Kenyan the piano, and it was very interesting. Taylin could learn from the notes. Kenyan was by ear, like his dad. But for each time they practiced through a song, I had them just mark it on the page, how many times you practiced through, and I would give them a point for every time they practiced. And the points turned into a penny. And a penny turned into a Nintendo 64. They bought that Nintendo with their piano money. When he started junior high, or middle school, as it was down there, he was terrified. I found out the last couple of months in elementary school, he started taking himself to the school counselor to talk to her about moving on. He was very scared about moving on. When he got into middle school, it was hard for him, and but he found that his skills on gaming, the Nintendo especially, won him a lot of friends because he could teach kids how to play Nintendo. So he ended up being invited to parties and Nintendo parties, and so he could teach people about Nintendo. He wanted to take Taekwondo, and the public school had a night class that you could take Taekwondo. So I started all three of the boys. I can't remember if Jonquil started in it or not, in Taekwondo. And after, I don't know how long it was, that they dropped the class, they stopped. They didn't renew it for the next season. But the boy still wanted to go. And so the teacher told us he was starting his own business where he would be teaching kids. And Taylor says, I want to do it. I couldn't persuade him, he didn't want to do it. So Quentin and Kenyon got into that. And a little while later, I was talking to Taylor and I says, why didn't you want to do Taekwondo? You were the one that started in the first place. And he says, Mom, I knew we couldn't afford it to have all three of us boys in. And he says, Kenyon needed it. And Kenyon had just been thumped around by some kids after school, and decided Kenyon was the one that needed to, he was going to the rougher school, anyway. He hated soccer. And I was the terrible mom that made him do it. I think he had fun at it. several things that I pushed Taylin to do because I'm a shy person, and I could see that in him, and I just knew he needed the shove. And one of it was EFY, that's called Especially for Youth. It's a summer program that is for a week that kids go off to a college campus and they have all this fun and games and he did not want to do that. And I signed him up anyway and I made him go. He was so mad at me. When we went to pick him up, he had the cheesiest grin on his face. And I'm like, what, you liked it? And he loved it. He really enjoyed it. And that was the same with his mission. Got his mission papers going, got him out there, got the call. And then he found out that two of his elementary school friends and junior high friends weren't going on a mission. I was like, I didn't know you had a choice. Oh, well, I forgot to tell you that. But his mission turned out to be a wonderful experience for him. I think it made him grow in many ways. And the only bad thing I can think of for his mission was that he ended up getting diagnosed with diabetes. So, one little note about his Nintendo days. With the Nintendo 64, he taught Liesel how to play that. She could beat Zelda. But when he got the Xbox, he knew better. They didn't teach Liesel to do the Xbox. She took it all the time. She loved to play it. So, but he was really good to his brothers and sisters. One last little thing, Quentin kind of mentioned it. Whenever they would have parties, friends over, Taylin would play gung ho for a little while and then all of a sudden he'd vanish. And there would be times I would look out the window and Kenyon is in the middle of everything, entertaining everybody and doing everything with the kids. And Taylin was nowhere to be found, not finding him in a closet or in his bedroom or somewhere, reading a book. He had had enough and he didn't want any more of all the noise and it seems to me that with Taylin's passing, the same thing has happened over again. Kenyon has stepped up and he's taken charge and he's done the hard things, tried to help the friends and get into contact with people while Taylin has slipped away somewhere. I don't know, maybe he's just reading a book somewhere. Anyway, it's been a joy to be his mother. And I'm really glad I've had that opportunity, that experience. I love him more than words can say, and I love all my kids. I'm sad we have to go through this without him. It's not that I don't believe that he's still somewhere, that there is an afterlife. I do believe that there's an afterlife, and he is somewhere still. It's what are we gonna do with this life without him? You know, I may have to live 25 more years without him. Or Quentin may have to live 60. That's a long time, so, but we'll manage. And I'm so grateful that I'll have come to pay your last respects. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Ryan. I was Taylin's software development manager at General Motors. So I joined General Motors back in 2018. That was the first year that I had met Taylin. I was fresh out of college and we were having training in Austin. And that was actually the first day that I had met Taylin, and it turned out to be his last day in Austin because he was moving over to Phoenix. First, right off the bat, calm, friendly, just an absolute awesome human, right? So I flew back after training and everything. He was really a great mentor. Like, everything about him, he made you feel comfortable around him. He was great around all of our team. We always had a lot of fun in all kinds of different team events. And he was a brilliant mind. He really took hold of his role in his software development job. And whenever I had questions about a certain tech stack or something, I always knew that I could go to Taylin to get those questions answered, because he was so willing to just learn whatever it was. It could be just a completely new technology, like going into, we started working with Java, and he just started picking that up. And we're in manufacturing IT, so we make a lot of the applications for supporting systems that help build GM vehicles. So there were always so many times where we would come into issues in the plants or whatnot, and Taylin always had a calm, level-headed approach to everything. And I've never seen a time where Taylin was worried. Like, he was always just so dependable and willing to work with anybody and solve the problem. And he solved problems super fast. So we're gonna miss him for sure at GM, and his contributions don't go unnoticed. He's done so many things. I've worked on so many projects with him, and it's gonna be a big hole within our team, because, like people have said, Taylin really was irreplaceable. So that's really what I wanted to say, and I'm just so sorry for the loss of Taylin. It's devastating.
Hi, I'm Sabrina. I'm Quentin's fiance, and I was Taylin's friend. I first met Taylin in the Atrophy Guild. We would play World of Warcraft, and Taylin was always playing some game. I think he played more games than anyone I know. We would always play Magic the Gathering together. He'd come over for our drafts, and we played a D&D campaign with him, and he's just really awesome guy. Like, I don't even know what to say. He just was so dependable, and he never felt like he was judging you. He didn't drink alcohol or anything like that, and a lot of times, we would go out to the bar or even the club, and he would dance sober, or just hang out with us, while some of us would, have some drinks. And he never seemed to mind. He never made anyone feel bad, like that our choices were different than his. And I just wanted to share a good memory I have of him. In, I think it was New Year's 2019, we were all celebrating with our guild friends, and I had a little too much to drink, and ended up breaking my finger. And he offered to take me to the hospital, and it was like, New Year's Eve. It was like middle of the night. He had a million better things to do. He had friends who were celebrating, and he drove me to the hospital. And he didn't make me feel bad for being dumb and hurting myself in preventable way. He just, you know, he just became the person that I needed right then, and he took me to the hospital, and he stayed with me while I got x-rays, and he helped me figure out insurance, and he was just such a great guy, and it just doesn't seem fair. I'm just gonna miss him a lot. And I hope that he knows how much we all love him. Thanks.
So I'm Taylin's other mother, Mel's twin sister, Claudia. I remember hearing a lady once saying that she finally learned how to play World of Warcraft so she could spend time with her kids. I thought, I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna surprise those kids. And I couldn't even keep up. I had no idea what was happening. It was just moving way too fast for me, so no, I never did it. But I want to tell you a little experience. This is not with Taylin. This was with a friend of mine. Her name was Heidi, and her mother was in hospice, and we were with her, and we knew her time was short. And she passed away so quietly that we weren't sure she had gone. And we finally went and got the CNA who came in, and they called for a nurse, because of course the nurse can come and pronounce her dead. And Heidi said, I'm gonna go out and get a smoke. And she went out, and then a little while later she came back in and she said, I had the weirdest experience. She says, as I opened the door, it's like a breeze went through me, and it's the most joyful feeling I have ever had. She said, I know my mother was happy to be going. And I think when we leave, I believe that there is life after death. And I think when we leave, that it is a joyful thing for us. I think that family and friends that have gone before, we will get to see again on that other side, and we will know our ancestors. And even though we may not know them in this life, we will know them in the next, and they will be there to greet us as well. And I really believe that Taylin was met by a lot of people that he would have known, and I'm very grateful that I have a feeling of these things, and it helps to comfort me. I didn't know him as well as I would have liked to, because after I got married, I didn't spend as much time with the family. I usually went north with my husband to be with his family. And I know that I missed out, but I have so appreciated all of you telling stories so that I got to know him a little better now. And I really appreciate you for that. Thank you for all coming.
Yeah, is there anybody else who wanted to? Yes, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jason. I am Taylin's friend and guild leader in his World of Warcraft guild. Taylin was just a great guy, and I'm reminded that he's no longer with us every day, because I spoke with him every day. We work from home, you know, a bunch of us do. We would get on Discord first thing in the morning when we clock in for work, and you know, I'm used to him just being there, or he'd show up shortly after me, and he's just, yeah, I'm definitely missing him. One really good memory, slightly funny, but it's a little, a little scary about Taylin. We went hiking one time, a bunch of us, just the South Mountain, and we decided we wanted to do this loop, even though we probably should have had a little more water. But we got about halfway, and my wife Elena was actually feeling really like getting heat exhaustion from it, and I remember getting a little bit towards the end, and Taylin was the first one to just, without even hesitation, get down from the mountain as fast as he could to bring water and Gatorades back, and just, yeah, he was just such a good guy, and I miss him so much, and sorry for everybody's loss here. I'm really, really grateful that I had the opportunity to meet him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm Taylin's sister-in-law, married to Kenyon. It's been said a lot about how kind and gentle and good that how good Taylin was, and I just want to echo that. The past 7 years that I've been a part of this family, I think one of my favorite things has been seeing Taylin with his siblings. They could just play off each other, and they're so witty and funny all together. And I feel glad that we lived close enough to Taylin that we could have him over at our house often. And I've also really loved seeing him in a role as Uncle Taylin. I remember when our son Milo was born, Taylin came to the hospital to meet him, and Kenyon handed him the baby, and he just was like, "What do I do?" And I think even if little fragile babies made him a little uncomfortable, he was always so sweet and loving, and came to birthday parties whenever he could, and yeah, I really miss him and love him so much, and thank you all for coming.
So my name is Brian. I'm the brother-in-law. Yeah, it might be kind of surprising to some of the family that I'm so emotional, but Taylin's just the kind of guy that, he just knowing him was such a privilege, being around him. He was just a cool guy, and you can see by the pictures. A couple other people mentioned it, but he was just down to do anything, And that was the first thing that I kind of noticed and really, loved and appreciated about him, that he's just always there. And the second thing I think was, also mentioned he's just a smart guy. He loved puzzles. I know, for a lot of Christmas presents, if we ever had his name, that was kind of the type of gift we look for and things, but I also remember he's just good at everything. And one quick memory I have is for one of their family reunions, wanted to bring, you know, shotguns up and go shotgun shooting. And I thought I would be pretty cool because I'd done it quite a bit and I got kind of good at it. And so I thought I could come and teach everybody how to do it. And I remember Taylin, it was Taylin's turn, and you know, we threw the first clay and he shattered it. And he just kept shattering them. He took away my moment. but yeah, I feel privileged to have known him, you know, to be in some of these pictures. He's a good dude, and he'll be missed, for sure.
My name is Scott, and I'm Taylin's uncle. I'm married to his other mother. And I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His name's Taylin. And I watched him grow up. And then he moved away, and I couldn't watch him more. And we have a lot of peculiar outlook on life from what outside of our faith from people, but they are quite common and normal to us. And as Taylin grew up, I witnessed all the values of our religion develop in him. And then he moved away, and I couldn't watch no more. And I'm not going to say the world is bad, but with our values and our religion, it is a hard place for us to thrive and not be swallowed up by some of the values that the world have. And I couldn't watch Taylin overcome those. And my biggest fear would be that he would fall short of the values that I knew that his mother and father and our religion taught him. And I was always quite worried. But I owe it now to his friends and the ones that loved him to settle my fears and anxieties of what Taylin may have fallen into, because you guys have given a testimony of the way Taylin was. And Taylin stood strong and firm in what we call the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it has given me a lot of peace and satisfaction. And I must say to those who are here and to those who have stood up here, that you have bore a testimony to me and how true he really was to his beliefs. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for not trying to sway him. And the only reason why you probably did that was because you truly loved him. And I thank you for that. My heart goes out to you, and I'll be ever grateful for what you have done and what you have taught me today. You have truly taught me a lesson, and what Taylin was not capable of doing, but I am. I judge, and I was afraid, and I had judgments and concerns, but you put those to rest, each and every one of you, and I thank you for that. And though this is not church, and this is not a gospel situation, but I can bear you testimony that Taylin lived his life in a manner that God would be pleased. And I will close this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Is there anyone else that'd like to say anything? Again, we truly appreciate you being here and express our appreciation as a family. We have been fed and nourished. I'm just going to tag on to what Scott said because I feel like I need to say this. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there's a few things that we believe. First of all, we believe that men are that they might have joy. Our purpose in being here is to find and have joy. Now, when we look around the world, sometimes we don't think that's the case. There's much sorrow, there's much pain and disappointment and inhumanity to others. But there's a word that I find fascinating. The word is microcosm. If you look that word up, that is a small world representative of a larger world. And I believe that this world that we are in, with all of its faults, all of its pains, all of its deficiencies, all of its injustices, all of its sorrows, is but a microcosm or a small sampling of the world to come, except this world is bound by time. Everything that we experience will come to an end in this world. But we have to know an end in order to appreciate a world without end. We have to know pain to appreciate a world to come with no pain. We have to know sorrow to appreciate a world that has no sorrow. We have to know the opposite in order to appreciate all the things that we believe that our Heavenly Father has in store for us. And so I would like to express that to each one of you and tell you that the purpose of God is to make sure that we live forever and that we live forever in a happy state. And I believe that's where Taylin is. We'll conclude this meeting. We'll have Rachel play for us, and then after she's through, we'd like to invite you to stay for some refreshments, to talk. Again, we express our appreciation. We know this is a busy time for you and your families, so we thank you again. Rachel. Again, thank you. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to stay and talk some more, you're welcome to.
And please eat. There's so much food back there.
Yes, please, be our guests.